The US government has been doing something it almost never does in checks. It's not just writing checks, but it's buying in. The Commerce Department has just recently announced saying that 9 quantum computing companies are expected to receive $2 billion grants, with the government taking equity stakes in each of those firms as part of the deal. About half that money, roughly around $1 billion, is expected to go to IBM, with chipmaker foundries across the globe. Australian American startup Diraq and players like Rigetti, D-Wave, Infleqtion, and others sharing the rest. It's the latest sign that Washington, in the Trump administration in particular, sees quantum as a strategic partner on par with AI, capable of unlocking faster scientific breakthroughs in everything from drug discovery to materials and national security. Welcome to Business Insights Daily. I'm your host, Sashank. What does it really mean when the Uncle Sam becomes shareholders of future computing? As you listen, keep this in your mind. When the US government isn't just funding quantum labs, but instead actually taking equity in them, is it acting like a patron or partner, or a new kind of tech investor with national security goals? Let's start with the structure. According to Commerce and multiple reports, the administration plans to award about $2 billion total in grants to 9 different companies specializing in quantum computing, with money coming from the 2022 Chips and Science Act earmarked for emerging technologies. So let's start with the structure. According to Commerce and multiple reports, the administrative plan to award about $2 billion in grants to 9 different companies specializing in quantum computing, with money coming from the 2022 Chips and Science Act earmarked for early emerging technology. Early details include saying that IBM is expected to receive roughly $1 billion, about half the total, to expand its quantum hardware and software roadmap. GlobalFoundries, the major US-based chipmaker, is slated for around $375 million and is likely to help build fabrication and packaging capacity relevant for quantum systems. Several pure-play quantum firms, including D-Wave, Quantum, Rigetti Computing, and Infleqtion, are reported to be in line for about $100 million each. Diraq, startup computer wing working on silicon-based spin qubit, is expected to receive about $38 million. What's unusual is a quid pro quo. In exchange for all of these grants, the Commerce Department will take equity stakes in each and every one of these companies. That means the federal government won't just be a funder, but it will be a minority stakeholder owner. Is this industry policy or Washington building a tech portfolio? Which leads to our second question. Would federal grants come from shares attached? Are we looking at a classic industrial policy, or a government that's starting to think like a long horizon venture investor in key technologies? Why is quantum computing getting this treatment? Policymakers and quantum computing technologists see quantum as a force multiplier for certain different kinds of problems: optimization, simulation of molecules and materials, and some cryptographic tasks. Potential national security point, because sufficiently powering quantum machines would break many of today's encryption schemes and enable new forms of navigation, sensing, and communication. Field where global competition is intense, with China, Europe, and others pouring billions into their own ecosystem. The US has already passed the National Quantum Initiative Act in 2018, committing over $1 billion to quantum research. This signal plans to update and expand its national quantum strategy, including pushing agencies toward post-quantum cryptography, using chips and science acts to back semiconductors in their early stage tech broadly, from AI to advanced packaging. This new $2 billion package with equity stakes attached is a step beyond. It's concentrating capitals with two specific commercial players, IBM, GlobalFoundries, and a handful of specialists, rather than just funding university research. It also aligns incentives. These firms succeed and grow in value, the public sector shares in the upside. Can you accelerate breakthroughs by tying science to stock prices? Which raises a third question. If we start treating quantum securities as both strategic assets and both financial bets, does that speed up innovation or risk distorting what gets researched and deployed based on near term commercial optics? Let's take a much more closer look at the mix of recipients. IBM has been building supercomputing qubit quantum processors for years, publishing roadmaps and scaling qubit counts, error mitigation, and hybrid classical quantum workforces. Specialization packages on top of this by GlobalFoundry also increase the conventional semiconductor platforms. Rigetti, Newegg, Infleqtion, Diraq, and others represent different technological bets. Newegg has been working on quantum and annealing machines optimized for specific optimization problems. Infleqtion, formerly Cold Quanta, works with neural atom and photonic platforms. Diraq is pursuing spinning qubits into silicon, promising path that leverages existing chip fabrication know-how. In addition to this, by spreading money across these platforms, commerce is avoiding a single winner-take-all bet on one quantum modality and tries to ensure that multiple approaches have a runway to mature, knowing that we still don't know which architecture will work for which applications. Equity component is a notable departure. The US government usually backs tech, traditionally using funds, basic research, grants, and contracts. They might provide tax credits, loans, or just straight up guarantees. Direct ownership stakes in private tech firms are rare outside of crisis situations and specialized cases. Over the last few years, though, the Trump administration has taken a roughly 10% stake in Intel by converting some of the grants into equity, plus a golden share to ensure certain rights. With this quantum package, Commerce will reportedly take a minority stake tied to the size of the award, in addition to an equal slice in Rigetti proportional to the total funding that it receives. The government won't run these companies, but it will, in fact, be a long term shareholders. So let's circle back. Next time you hear about quantum computing news in the headlines, whether it's about breaking encryption or simulating new drugs, it might be worth remembering that somewhat inside those stories, that's now a quiet, unusual shareholder, the US government. Betting that owning at least part of the future might as well be important for regulating it. Thank you for listening to Business Insights Daily. I'm your host, Sashek, and I'll see you next time.